I've been happily married for 2 decades now. Despite not having children, my wife, Emily, and I share a deep and affectionate bond. Our colleagues at work recognize us as a devoted couple, a reputation I inadvertently cultivated by frequently discussing our harmonious relationship, be it at social gatherings or casual conversations. One evening, I found myself at a nearby pub, invited by a junior colleague who sought my counsel. Typically, such requests were anticipated, with pre-decided topics. This time, however, the conversation veered toward improving deteriorating marriages, a subject spanning from trivial matters to grave concerns. This colleague, a man who had faced marital crisis before, had heard about my contented marriage and approached me for advice. Although I didn't believe my guidance was particularly profound, he credited me with helping him navigate his troubled relationship, steering it away from divorce. From that point on, inexplicably, I started receiving more and more requests for marital advice. In my role as the HR manager, I understood the significance of strong marital relationships in enhancing workplace productivity. Hence, I couldn't turn away these consultations. Sometimes, depending on the nature of the discussions, I found myself puzzled, wondering why people confided in me about such personal matters. However, each time a colleague approached me, their demeanor was serious, reflecting the gravity of their concerns. That's why I approach these conversations earnestly, engaging with my colleagues openly. Occasionally, I seek insights from Emily, drawing from her perspective as a woman. Despite the common notion that couples cease communication after 2 decades of marriage, that wasn't the case for us. Consequently, the idea of facing a divorce seemed unthinkable. However, it happened unexpectedly one evening after a usual consultation on marital issues. I arrived home slightly later than usual, around 9 p.m. To my surprise, all the lights were off. I called out for Emily as I entered, but there was no reply. At that time, Emily, a full-time homemaker, seldom left the house. I recalled her mentioning a dinner gathering with her college friends, assuring she'd be back by 8 p.m. The eerie silence inside the dark house left me unsettled. Proceeding to the living room, I switched on the lights, only to find Emily absent. On the table, I noticed a piece of paper. As I read the words inscribed upon it, I was overcome with shock. The message simply stated, "Thank you for everything. Get along well with that person." It was a clear indication of our breakup, with that person undoubtedly referring to another woman. It became evident that suspicions of my infidelity were looming, though I had no inkling as to who might be behind these accusations. An uneasy feeling settled in, prompting me to dial Emily's number repeatedly. Strangely, she didn't answer, and her voicemail remained untouched. I hesitantly reached out through WhatsApp, but my message lingered unread for what felt like an eternity. Emails met with the same silence. Desperation pushed me to dial Emily's family home, a rare move for me. My mother-in-law's surprised tone greeted me, questioning if something was amiss. "Is something wrong, Matt?" she inquired. Her concern deepened my sense of foreboding. I had assumed Emily would be at her parents' house, but her absence there left me fumbling for an excuse. "Oh no, it's just that Emily couldn't decide what to get for Mother's Day, so I thought I'd ask you secretly without her knowing," I blurted, acutely aware of the flimsiness of my excuse. "We'll still think it over together, of course." Without waiting for her response, I hastily hung up, my heart pounding with guilt. The following day came and went, devoid of any communication from Emily. Clueless about her whereabouts, I spent the day in a state of restless anxiety. On the evening of the second day since Emily's disappearance, the doorbell pierced the quietness of the house. I rushed to the doorbell monitor, hoping beyond hope that it was Emily's return. I was taken aback when I saw my mother-in-law on the monitor, her unexpected presence surprising me. "I couldn't help but worry about the way you sounded on the phone," she said, her concern evident in her voice. Realizing there was no point in trying to deceive her, I showed her the message Emily had left behind. The moment she read it, her expression turned stern, and suspicion clouded her eyes. Despite my calm explanation that I had no knowledge of the message's meaning, she remained unconvinced. Her doubts about me lingered, unresolved, and she eventually left, leaving me to grapple with the mystery of Emily's disappearance. In the wake of Emily's vanishing act, I found myself repeatedly pondering the message's cryptic meaning, but I remained clueless. After much contemplation, I decided to visit the police station and file a missing person report. However, the police officer I spoke to dismissed my concerns. Persisting, I pressed on, but the officer seemed irritated and asked, "Have there been any strange changes in your wife's behavior recently? Any signs of another man?" His unexpected question caught me off guard. In a fit of anger, I retorted, "There's no way something like that would happen with Emily." However, the officer, likely accustomed to such defensive responses from concerned spouses, remained unfazed, his expression unchanged. He calmly continued, "Sir, please." I agreed to file the missing person report, though I couldn't shake the feeling that the officer's response was mechanical, lacking genuine interest in finding Emily. Leaving the police station, the word cheating lingered in my mind, an unsettling echo of the officer's inquiry. Back home, I continued to dwell on Emily's recent behavior, searching for any suspicious signs. Despite my efforts, I couldn't pinpoint anything alarming. In the days following Emily's disappearance, I slept in the living room, ready to respond to any communication. One night, the doorbell's chime jolted me awake. I hurried to the monitor and was surprised to see my mother-in-law's stern face. Hastily, I opened the front door, bracing myself for her reprimand. Unexpectedly, she uttered astonishing words. "Emily is at my house right now." I stood there, frozen, absorbing her words. After a deep breath, I snapped back to reality, swiftly preparing to leave. Just before I stepped out, my mother-in-law said, "I suspected you. I'm sorry." She had come in person to apologize, explaining her stern demeanor earlier. Rushing to Emily's parents' house, my mind raced, contemplating the situation. I reasoned that the last time my mother-in-law visited, Emily had probably been at her parents' place. However, Emily must have abruptly returned home, explaining the situation to her mother. In my mind, I envisioned my mother-in-law coming to my house, intending to confront me directly, perhaps even interrogating me rigorously. Yet witnessing my flustered state, she might have doubted the accuracy of Emily's words and left without saying anything. She had no way to verify the truth, so she returned home empty-handed. Today, she'd likely heard something from Emily and came to apologize. With these thoughts driving me, I hurried to Emily's parents' house. The journey was a mere 20-minute walk, but I wanted to confirm Emily's safety urgently, so I ran. Upon reaching my childhood home, Emily, as soon as she saw my face, began apologizing profusely, her tears flowing freely. I found myself at a loss for words, caught in a somewhat comical state of disorientation. Finally, when Emily regained her composure, she began speaking quietly, explaining her side of the story. As I listened, all the tension left my body. The reason she had left home was a complete misunderstanding on her part. On that day, Emily had glimpsed me while she was on her way home after finishing dinner with her friends. I was merely walking, carrying a small child. Beside me stood a woman in her early 30s, the two of us appearing like a genuine parent-child duo. Emily murmured, reminding me of the day when she had spotted me. It was a day when I had received a consultation from a junior colleague. Later, in the evening after work, I had a discussion with his wife. This colleague of mine, still engrossed in his work, had 2 children, both about to turn 2 years old. He had refrained from joining the discussion, fearing he might inadvertently worsen things if he were present. The root cause of the couple's relationship deterioration was the wife's constant complaints about his late arrivals home due to a significant project's final stages, demanding his late-night presence. He was deeply involved in the project, often working late into the night. Consequently, he returned home exhausted and lacked the patience to listen to his wife's grievances. One day, his wife's patience wore thin, and she exploded in anger. Despite his numerous apologies, she seemed inconsolable. Feeling desperate, he pleaded with me, "I can't take it anymore. Please do something." It was then that I intervened to mend their relationship. Of course, Emily was unaware of my involvement. On the day she saw us walking together, seemingly amicable, She instinctively suspected me of cheating. In reality, we were simply walking together to the bus terminal near the station. Unbeknownst to me, Emily discreetly followed the three of us. Her intuition had solidified into conviction when she saw the child I was holding address me as Daddy. My cheerful response, a simple, "What's up?" was all it took. I still remember the joy I felt when the child called me Daddy, and how my smile had widened in response. Yet, as I grinned, Emily's world seemed to darken before her eyes. Shocked, she rushed home immediately, leaving a message before heading to her parents' house. Tearfully, she recounted the day's events to her mother, releasing the pent-up emotions that had consumed her. As she spoke, relief seemed to find her, and she fell into an exhausted sleep. When Emily woke, her mother was no longer there. At that moment, her mother must have been en route to my house. Today, Emily realized it was all a misunderstanding. One day, at her mother-in-law's suggestion, we went to the shopping center, hoping to distract ourselves. While there, Emily spotted a woman and a child she had seen in town, accompanied by a man of similar age. Acting on impulse, Emily approached them. Standing before them, she was at a loss for words. The man looked surprised initially, but then he smiled, saying, "Oh, Mrs. Thomas, hello. We've always appreciated your help." Emily was bewildered. Why did this man know her? It turned out the man explained. Mr. Thomas had a picture of you two on his smartphone's wallpaper. He proudly showed it off when we talked about our troubled relationship. But the other day, your child called him Daddy. Emily, baffled, mentioned this to the woman beside him, who looked puzzled for a moment before apologetically explaining, "I'm sorry. Our child calls any adult man Daddy. Someone overheard it and misunderstood." Hearing this, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. "You've always been a bit clumsy, but this one's the funniest so far." Emily, upon hearing this explanation, felt a mix of embarrassment and relief. Finally, she smiled. It was the first time in 4 days that I had seen her smile. Unable to contain my emotions, I said, "Please continue showing me that smile from now on." In response, Emily nodded quietly.